You're making it less safe for us and you're taking away our money. So why are we going to be there? There's not many hardworking young people. I think you can run rings around a lot of these people.
I can bring my business to Dubai. I can take it to Spain. I don't necessarily need London and the UK no more. It's not the greatest place for business. There's a big store closing in the UK. So they're driving businesses to either close or move abroad or just employ less staff.
Charlie, we're here in Dubai. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's a lovely day again in Dubai and absolutely loving it here, yeah.
The first time we met was virtual. I'm not sure if you remember. It was on BBC. We were both talking about the lack of productivity in the UK. We were saying that we were both two people saying that we shouldn't work 4 days a week and we should stick to
That's
the
right,
original.
yeah.
And then there was a two panel who were saying we should work 4 days a week, essentially. I think that alludes to a lot of today's society. What have you seen change you have your own business, you have your own business empire. What have you seen change in the workforce, in particular in the UK?
Yeah. Well, that particular programme, I think it was BBC One Sunday Morning Live.
Yeah.
And you were right, there was a panel of us and two was disagreeing with us.
Yeah.
And we obviously see it different and, undoubtedly they was wrong, that's for sure. And you say, what's changed since them days?
Yeah.
Well, I think more so now than ever that, we need to go to work. We need to get back to work and stop all this working from home nonsense and, stop all this 4-day-a-week sort of nonsense and, people trying to pick their own hours and, more or less saying what shifts they want to do and what they don't want to do. The employer's got to get back in control of it. I mean, as you know, the UK at the moment is in a mess. And I actually think a lot of this is to do with the working from home culture and allowing the worker or the employee to dictate their own terms. It just cannot work.
One thing is like you have your own business. I definitely want to get what it's like being a business owner, because for me it just seems like there is no reason you would to start a business in the UK. I don't understand why anyone would. I think it's very entrepreneurial.
That's right. Yeah.
Have you seen that change in the last?
Undoubtedly. I left the UK 9 months ago when Labour got in, or nearly 10 months now, because I could see how bad it was going to get. I didn't think it would get as bad as this, I'll be honest. But, they're very anti-business. They don't like anybody that's successful. They just, they're basically, I think, just looking after people that don't contribute anything and penalising successful people. So since them days, I think 9-10 months ago, things have got a lot worse, a lot more, whether you be a millionaire, billionaire, or just somebody that has your own business, or somebody just wants to get out of the UK and can afford to get out of there. So things have got a lot worse. And, I think I've said this in quite a few interviews, that what Rachel Reeves is doing in Starmer and Labour Party is driving people out of the country. And that's proven. I mean, here you are, many other people have left, Alfie Best, another billionaire, and more people are leaving now, and they will continue to leave because, in the last few days, I think when this NI has kicked in now, and, there's a big store closing in the UK, been going 140 years, but the hike in the NI is something like 200,000, and they just said, we can't do it. So they're driving businesses to either close or move abroad or just employ less staff. The previous company I worked for have got rid of all their apprentices.
Wow.
I've had apprentices for 40 odd years. They're wiping them all out now in May. They're making redundancies. And, they're saying it's the NI hike and the minimum wage increase and general cost in general. So it's an accumulation of things, but, they are so anti-business Labour that I don't know if they're that stupid that they can't realise what's happening, but their revenue that they will bring in April from taxpayers will probably be 10-15% less when she planned it to be an increase with the national insurance. But, these people that are now going unemployed, they're not paying the national insurance, obviously, nor the companies. They're not paying any tax in. And, of course, they haven't got the money to go out and spend, which gives them the VAT also. So their losses are going to be tremendous. And next month, it'll be even worse. I mean, officially, they say we're not in recession in the UK, but we will be in a recession as soon as they stop doctoring the figures and speak the truth. But
it's crazy because you're an example of somebody that they should be desperate to keep. You're British-born, successful business owner. It's an amazing, great British story. So they should be desperate to keep people like you. And I know you've left the UK, but I'm sure you left with a heavy heart. It wasn't a furtive stayed.
Of course, I was sort of born in London, lived in London, worked in London, brought up my children in London, run the business in London. So, it's a big upheaval to go.
Yeah.
And, I have to say I've paid in over 100 mil in tax
Wow.
over the years, as an individual, that is. Yeah, why would you drive people like me out and many others? They're just not... As I say, I don't know if someone can be that stupid not to get it.
Yeah.
But you don't penalise successful people. And we're not looking for a free ride.
Yeah.
We're just saying, don't keep hammering us. Let us, encourage people to start businesses off. And, this working from home nonsense is, as you said, why would you open a business up in the UK? And I remember when I was leaving, I made a few interviews and TV interviews, and, I said that, this is just the start, me going, millions of others go. And they denied it, and they said, no, the UK is a great place to invest, and people won't be leaving. Well, they are leaving, and it's not a great place to invest.
Well, if all the wealthy people leave the UK, then who are they going to tax? They have to tax everyone else, the working class. And you're a good example of a really successful person leaving. I'm somebody who's relatively youngish who wants to be really successful, and I've left. And I think there's plenty of people like me that want to do the same. So you're kind of wondering who's going to be left in the UK who's going to essentially build this economy. Because I personally, I would love to have my own business one day in the UK, but I see no reason why anyone would even think about it.
I was going to say, why Labour are in, they're very anti-business. There's absolutely no point. I made a statement that if and when Reform get in, I'd be interested in going back.
Right,
because
okay.
I think they would encourage businesses and not penalise them. But unfortunately, that could be 4 years away. I actually think there'd be a general election called earlier.
Right.
I don't think Labour, we can't continue the way it's going.
Yeah.
And I think a general election will be called earlier. I'll probably be honest, I think there'll be a coalition between Reform and Conservative that get next into power. And I would have to weigh the situation up then. I do have a business in the UK, my family do, called We Fix London, which is similar to what we've done before, but obviously better, the plumbing, heating, drains, etc. And I'm a non-executive chairman on there, so they're actually complying with all the UK tax regulations and doing it as they should do. But, I've said to my son and family that, give it sort of 5 years maximum, but maybe 2 or 3 years, re-look at the situation. And if you don't think it's worth it, then get out there and come to Dubai and have We Fix Dubai.
I'm fascinated to talk about your business because I feel like one of the big problems in the UK is this kind of university culture. Now, I did go university, but I definitely saw firsthand there are a lot of degrees that don't need to be degrees. I thought like there's a real push for these sort of, I don't want to say Mickey Mouse degrees, but these useless degrees. It'd be much better if they invested in apprenticeships and actual positions like that. Your business is, correct me if I'm wrong, I was doing a bit of research. You have lots of apprenticeships you have had previously. You've hired a lot of people. Talk to me a bit about that. Like, what is it like now for, if you're a youngish man, woman, doesn't really want to go to university, aside from businesses like yourself, do they really have much option?
Yeah, well, look, I think, again, that we've been saying for many years that too many people are pushed towards university and, many waste of time degrees. And, my look on it is what's the point of going to university if you don't particularly need a degree to get that job? Yes, scientists and, accountants and, doctors and various other people need that degree, but probably 50% that go to university don't need a degree to get the job. And as you know, they don't always get the job that they've gone to university for. So it's not necessarily the right route no more. I mean, it's an old-fashioned idea, and universities are struggling at the moment. They're closing down. I think they're getting rid of quite a few thousand staff, and they're only interested in putting bums on seats. That's all they're interested in. And I'm told that many overseas students are not coming to the UK now for the education, that the education standards have dropped. So they're really struggling with universities, and I think they need to wake up and realise that, there's life without a degree, and, why not go to work, earn money while you're learning? And the ideal thing is an apprenticeship. There's no two ways about it. Get yourself into an apprenticeship and, it'd be equivalent to a degree. Wherever you go anywhere in the world, you'll be qualified in what you're doing. You would have learned, you would have the experience. You also would have had some income coming in. You won't have a large debt to pay. I mean, a lot of these students, I'm told that they never pay the debt back because you've got to earn a certain amount in their salary per year. And I'm told that many of them get a job where they don't go above that salary, so they don't pay the debt back. So, it really needs re-looking at and going along with where we are today. And people, the country, the UK, is screaming out for anybody with a trade, you know, plumber, heating, drains, electrics, carpentry, bricklayer, anybody with a trade. There's a massive shortage out there. And, you know, my take is that you're never going to be out of work and you'll earn loads of money. So, and just to add this, why we're also being told that AI is going to be taking over so many jobs. So what is the point of people going to university, learning a job that may disappear in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, someone just needs to point it out to the students, because I actually think it's just a complete rip-off.
Well, you're going to need AI is not going to replace a plumber, right? It's not going to replace some of these trade jobs. What was the impact? We're going back a little bit here, but what was the impact of ULEZ for your business? I thought at the time, this is so bad for people who are plumbers, people who are builders and carpenters. Like, did that have any impact for yourself or people you know of?
Well, I mean, there's a massive shortage of skilled labour out there, you know, massive shortage. And, you know, unfortunately, when you get, you know, supply and demand, you get a lot of people that perhaps are not up to standard, you know. Right. They're taking a chance, they're just jumping in and trying to earn some money. So it has affected the industry. And on that basis, you've got to even be more and more fussy who you employ. And yeah, again, I have to say there's no better person to take on your company than an apprentice, because he's learned all the right way, and then he'll learn the way that your company operate. But unfortunately, you know, they're just, you know, the training side of things have just gone down and down and down. I remember when Cameron and Conservatives was in government, and you know, I was talking to Cameron about running a government-funded apprenticeship scheme at the time. Okay. And that would work, you know, and that would even work today. But, you know, Labour they just don't seem to be interested in practical things.
Why? So we'll go back to you leaving the UK. So it became clear Labour were going to win. Was it the moment Labour won, you thought, I can't be in the UK anymore? Or was it a build-up? So did you feel as we're building up to the election last couple of years, or was it literally just...
Well, look, yes, let's not kid anyone. It's not been great for the Conservatives for the last, 14 years that they was in. And I think the last 2 to 3 years they started to lose it with different prime ministers. So it wasn't going too well anyhow. But I just thought myself, I just couldn't work under a Labour government, because I know how anti-business they are. But I honestly never expected what I'm seeing now. I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't expect it to.
What are you seeing now? What's like the...
Well, I'm sort of seeing now that, I'd say they're penalising successful people, even just normal working people. They're taxing them on all and everything. They're increasing charges all and everywhere. And, billions of pounds that's going to immigrants, illegals, asylum seekers. We just cannot afford it. The country's going to go bust. So what I'm seeing now is, I think we're getting less people putting money in the pot and more people taking it out. And that can only mean one thing, means we're going to run out of money, obviously.
I saw you this morning on GB News talking about the sick note crisis, the people having lots of sick notes.
Oh, the sick note business, yeah.
And do you think that's also playing a part in maybe just a decline of the West in general? Like this kind of we've created a really softer environment, a soft kind of generation.
Yeah, well, again, as you say, I was on GB News this morning, and there are too many people are playing the I call it the mental wealth card, because it's guaranteed to get you off work and guaranteed to give you some benefit money. It's impossible for this amount of people to be this ill. These are young people we're talking about. They're young people. I mean, why would they necessarily be any more unwell than an older person that's gone through wars and recessions and family life in general? But all of a sudden, this new generation seems to, be a lot weaker and softer. And I think society is teaching them that, in other words, they're not just picking up on their own. It's a bit like, I stayed at home, I work at home. And I think that was the big turning point, the working from home business. A lot of people then felt entitled to stay at home. I don't need to go to work. I'm more productive at home. All this crap nonsense that they bring in. And I'm sure 10% of people are, but 90% of people are not more productive. And you've got to sort of amalgamate at work. You've got to learn off each other. We all learn off of somebody. And I just feel that started this culture for this generation, that they go sick kind of thing. And this work-life balance, I mean, there's 24 hours in a day. If we have 8 hours sleep, we've got 16 hours left in the day. Surely you could go to work and, 8 or 9 hours a day and still have a good work-life balance. But this work-life balance business, I think, again, is drummed into youngsters that, you've got to have more time, out of work. But, there's an equal balance there if you think about it. 3 8s, 24. But it's just drummed into them is that, oh no, I'm not going to go to work. I'm not going to do any overtime. I'm not this. I want to do 4 days. I want to do 3 days. So we've got to blame ourselves for teaching that into the youngsters' system where we should go back to the old-fashioned way. You go to work, it's respectful, you pay your taxes, you contribute what you do, and yourself, once you get into the workplace, it's an whole new world out there. It's a starting point. But the programme the other day was saying youngsters are turning down £40,000 jobs and rather be on benefits or be sick.
Crazy.
I mean, it doesn't work like that in the real world. yourself, you start at the bottom and you build up. And many people that started at the bottom end up, having their own business.
Definitely.
But if we don't change it, then I'm afraid that, we become a third world country.
I can't, the working from home stuff, like, I think if you're a young person, how are you going to learn? Like, if you're not next to somebody more experienced, those little coffee breaks, those tea breaks, you pick people, you're not going to sit there and go on Teams and message your boss because it's awkward. Your boss is near you and you're like, I don't get that. And then I think with a lot of the younger generation now, from what I'm seeing is like the best thing if you are mental health, mental well-being, depressed, whatever, is to work. It's the best thing to work. Like
it's to get out.
If you're at work, you've got a purpose. You've already achieved something. You've got on the train. You've got in the car. You've gone to work. That feeling you've done something already. So many people would say the best thing when you're depressed or whatever is to actually just do something, whether it's your chores or.
They've got 24 hours so they sleep, and they've got to do something. And unfortunately, it appears all they do is on, laptops or computers or phones. And, so that's keeping them occupied, but it's not necessarily, going to teach them life skills or how to earn money. So, they've got to do something, and that's what they're doing. They're just sort of, on this type of social media all the time. And so work is all of a sudden doesn't even come into it. But you're right, they're doing themselves more damage by being at home and not getting out and not exercise. All the things that we was told for years. We was told that for years and years, and nothing in life has changed. What's changed? We go to sleep, we go to work, and we have our leisure time. But now they're sort of trying to take work out of the equation, and maybe that is helping making mental health issues worse, because to be in a home all day and have nothing to do, it's got to be I'm sure I've done that when I've been ill or couldn't get out of work that day, but it drives you mad. And you get out, you get a job, you come part of society, and I think it just lifts you, kind of thing. I mean, it's like, if a youngster gets a job, gets an apprenticeship, they're like, as if they've won the lottery. They've got a future. Look, no job, no future. That's my say.
And I think with the mental health stuff, there's a difference between mental health and mental well-being. Like, everyone goes through difficult periods at work, personal, whatever. That doesn't mean you have mental health. It means your well-being is not perfect right now. But I think a lot of the stuff is when you see people, they are confusing mental health with just being a bit stressed or being a bit like, and they think being diagnosed with mental health gives them this kind of cop out. There are people, I'm sure, that are actually severely depressed and they need help and support. But I think the vast majority of them just they're really stressed right now. They're going for a difficult period, sure, but you don't have mental health issues.
I'm totally agreeing with you. I'm sure there is a percentage that does, and they generally need help, and we should look after them and give them as much help as we can. But unfortunately, the ones that are just making out of that, it's affecting the others, because obviously they're using up money and resources. So of course you're right. I mean, this, as I say, I call it mental wealth card rather than the mental health. Years ago, if you went to the doctor and you'd say I had a bad back, he couldn't really diagnose it, so he'd sign you off sick. And this is what's happening now with the youngsters. They just go there, I'm stressed, I'm this, I can't this. And unfortunately, the doctor can't go against you. I mean, because if something did go wrong, obviously it'd be on him. But they sit there in 10 minutes, they can convince the doctor that they've got mental health issues. And
if the company doesn't listen, they're in trouble, right? If
that's right.
You've got no rights.
That's exactly where what they should do is be referred to a specialist doctor and, you know, really get checked out and examined properly. But, you know, I have to be honest, I just feel, I would say 90% that say they've got mental health issues is untrue. I know people that do have genuine mental health issues, and believe me, you know, they are struggling, and, you know, they couldn't be going out to these raves at night, and they couldn't be texting them all their friends. They have to be isolated and keep away from everybody. But, you know, it's just an excuse. I mean, unless someone's prepared to stand up and say what I'm saying or you're saying, then it will just continue. And will it be getting any better? The answer's no. It's not going to get any better.
What's some of the, because I've seen you speak out a lot about it, what's some of the stuff you've got back? Like, as in, I'm sure you'd have got lots of criticism for all the stuff you've said. What's some of the stuff that people would say to you when you say stuff like this?
Well, you've got two types of people. You've got the people with good work ethics,
Right.
so you're 100% right. You know, they're lazy people, they've got no principles, they're not interested in work at all, work's a terrible thing. So you've got that type of person, then you've got the other one that says, oh, you're a slave driver, you're a dinosaur, you're this, you're that, you know, condemning anything I say on it.
Yeah.
They're condemning, you know, as if I've got no art or, you know, got no feelings for people. You know, I made it very clear, anybody that genuinely needs help, we should give them all the help possible. Anybody with disabilities or genuine mental health or caring for somebody or really, you know, is struggling with life, in, you know, genuinely, give them all the help. But some of these other people, you know, you look at them and they're as fit as a fiddle, and they're just, you know, well, it's not worth getting out of bed. The money ain't this. The money. I mean, in the discussion this morning, the one of the chaps on that I was talking, who was really defending people on sick note, he said, well, a lot of it's to do with they're not being paid enough. I said, yeah, but you can't use that as an excuse that makes you, you know, makes you sick, kind of thing. Look, you know, most people that go to work, they want to get a bit more money, but you've got to go there and do it and improve it, and then, you know, start working together.
Yeah.
But you know, I've never underpaid anybody, and we always pay, even on apprentices, we pay them over the normal rate because the apprenticeship rate is low, and hopefully they'll change it and get more people into it. But you know, to come up with an argument, it's not. I think the benefits often outweigh what they could go and earn.
Yeah.
But you know, they don't seem to look at it that it's a starting point. You know, you go on any company and, you know, whether it be 6 months, 12 months later, you know, is there any chance of any more money? And if you've put something into it, you're going to go up the ladder, aren't you? You know, but that doesn't seem to be put across to a lot of the new generation. It's like, well, I want to start at the top. I'm worth this, I'm worth that. It's this entitled feeling I think we've got. And as I say, it's frightening, you know, really frightening. I have 4 children. They're all grown up and family and that. And I've moved to Spain, but I'm now going to move to Dubai. And my youngest daughter and her husband and 4 children, they're coming to Dubai. And I've said to the other 2, you know, it's not for me to tell you what to do, but if things don't improve here, you've got to get out of the country. Yeah. You know, you just got to get out of it because it's just going to be, well, I actually think there's going to be civil war. You know, I think we've let it go too far now, and it's just a matter of, you know, before the explosion happens.
I think when you're pushing people as far as the UK are pushing them, what do people expect? We obviously don't want that to happen. But like, if you're plummeting people into basically poverty, and like I don't see how this ends well in the UK. I just don't. And that's the really sad thing of the thing. We both would rather be in the UK right now with our families.
Oh, of course.
And we don't want to, as amazing as Dubai is and other places, there's a feeling of being at home in Britain, and it's a real shame that they just don't seem to care.
Well, it's, you know, not only, you know, as we say, talking about from the economy point of view in the UK, you know, the safety side of it is strong. It's pretty much a lawless society now, you know, out there.
I used to get emails saying at my previous work, they used to tell me on like Mondays, it would say, you can't, be careful when you leave the office. This is in central London, so, you know, London. Yeah. Be careful when you leave the office because there's basically hold your mobile phone in 2 hands or quickly put it back in your pocket. Yeah. Because people are going around in scooters or whatever and snatching them off hands. So that is crazy.
That's it. I mean, it's you know, I'm not only going to move to Dubai for, you know, the fact that I cannot, you know, I just cannot be around Labour Party with their policies. I just, and lots of people are believing in them, you shouldn't have to do this and you don't need to do that, and you can work from home and you can tell your boss that, you're not coming in and you want to do this. And at WeFix, we have a policy, we don't work from home. That as simple as that. We have private.
Have you had any pushback from when you hear from people?
Oh, I mean, look, when
if
somebody comes for the job or for work, it's clearly stated on their website, and they'll be told that evidently they can still request to work from home, but the answer will be no.
Right.
I mean, it's not something. And look, occasionally somebody says, I've got to this appointment, and can I? And we let a little bits and pieces go. We try and be flexible, but we're not working for WeFix on the basis you're going to work from home. We didn't do it at the previous company, and I did have a guy work for about a day in our PR department.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, the confusion it caused was incredible. He had 2 people under him doing social media, and they was all over the place because they couldn't contact him and they didn't know whether to do this. And they weren't juniors. I mean, they were on about 30 grand per annum, but it didn't all sort of collaborate.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, look, you can't be doing it again. I said, if you're not going to be in, it's better off to be non-working at all. I said, because the confusion it's called, I'm having people ring me up, I didn't know because he didn't tell me this and I can't get him. And he says, and it was me sort of being decent. He said, he's got these appointments, can he work from home? And we allowed it up, and I'll tell you, the confusion and problems it caused, and even the costing of it all. And I said, to everyone that works for us, I said, look, no company will ever be better than WeFix if they allow their people to work from home. Mm-hmm. It cannot work. That's in the industry that we're in, because the confusion it caused for one day. And it was me, I think I was in Spain, and I was all day on the phone trying to connect things. And I just said to this guy, look, next time you want to work from home, just clock out. It's not going to work. I said, because these people, I said, they didn't know what to get on with or what to do. And, I heard you say that, how can you learn off of people when you're at home? You're not going to learn off the thing. And I learned a long time ago in just life that we all learn from somebody. Yeah. And it cannot, it cannot be nothing better than that person there that you're learning from.
100%.
I don't know any better way than that. If you with people and someone just drops something and say, oh, by the way, I'll do it this way, and someone says, well, I've got to get here and I'll get this taxi. You learn all the life skills from people, but we all learn from somebody, and we ain't going to learn from a computer and not being connected with people.
Definitely. I think that's really, I just don't understand how Labour, I just don't get how they don't get this. They can surely see what it's doing to the country, or maybe they just don't care. Maybe they just don't feel like there's any. I keep thinking whilst I've been here, and I've got friends, obviously family in the UK, and I just keep thinking what's the rationale behind the decisions? What's the plan? What's the idea? And I've kind of come to the conclusion that they just don't really care. It doesn't really. I can't. I don't know if you have an answer to it. I can't figure it out.
I think many people go through the same thing. All of us can see what they're doing wrong. Yeah. And you're thinking, why are they doing it? And, I come up with, is Starmer a spy or something? What are these people doing? I mean, they're destroying the UK. And if they was being paid to destroy the UK, they're doing a great job. But, that goes through my mind. I'm thinking, with the NI hike, it was so obvious that businesses will shut down. Yeah. You won't bring in an extra 1 to 2% NI. You'll go down, probably lose 5 or 10% of it. So, I mean, is it that they're incapable of doing the job? Is it that they're not knowledgeable enough or experienced enough, and they're sort of punching above their weight? You know yourself, if you got someone, look, I'm a great believer, don't put square pegs in round holes. It don't work, and I think that's what they've done with Labour. They're not suitable for the positions. They're not experienced. They're not knowledgeable. They haven't got the common sense. Yeah. And I have to say it. This is the way I look at it. You've got Starmer, Rayner and Reeves. Would I employ any of them? The answer's no.
I don't think, yeah.
And yet they're running the country. And if they wanted to work for me and pay me, they couldn't work with me or for me, because I think they would just be a waste of time and send you backwards. So I'm looking at these people that are running the country. I wouldn't have them working for me, and yet we're allowing them to run the country.
It's crazy. And like I saw, regardless of what people think of Trump or whatever, but Trump, Elon Musk, and then they have like between them, I think it's like 50, 60 years of business experience
Yeah.
of working in businesses, starting their own businesses. And our whole cabinet has zero.
That's
The
it.
whole UK cabinet has
Yeah,
zero.
yeah.
And I'm just thinking, wow, like I'm almost envious of America. They've got like, people
Yeah,
who have
they've got
done stuff.
experienced people.
They've achieved stuff in their lives, okay, at different ages, whatever. But they've got intelligent people. It's a big group, the cabinet's so like different profiles.
Look,
And they're all intelligent. They're all, some are more intelligent, some are more business experience, some have just like, and you're like, wow, like this must be so amazing to have a
well, to have
like,
someone
leader
that's
like
got to knows what they're talking about. I mean, you say that, and again, my PR people said to me today, one of the reasons with the youngsters is because you've got cabinet that have got no work, no business experience. They've all had social jobs, or for civil servants, or charities, or non-profit making businesses or companies. I mean, and there's no one there with any business knowledge at all. And I suppose really it's like putting footballers on a football pitch and they've never played football. They ain't got open hell, have they? I mean, they're going to kick the ball, but they might kick it the wrong way. And I think this is what is happening with them. The fact that they have got nobody at all, and it doesn't seem to bother them. And rightly as you say, nobody can work out why they are doing this. Why are they doing it? I mean, it would go round in circles. You just cannot come up with what's going wrong. But I honestly feel that there must be a plan behind it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've sort of heard this, but they're now talking about giving migrants and illegals rented private property for 5 years. So they're getting.
Oh, wow.
They're trying to get the private landlord to give them a 5-year lease. They'll put the migrants, immigrants, asylum seekers, illegals, call them what you want to call them. They'll put them in there for 5 years and they pay all the bills and you're guaranteed your rent.
The government would pay
The government are proposing this.
Wow.
They're now talking to private landlords. Now, maybe you're going to get some private landlords jump on that, but I know of 2 people that have got quite a big property portfolio and they're now selling everything. Because also what they're going to introduce next year, if you can believe it, is that people that rent private property, after X amount of years, you're going to be in a position that you can buy it, and you can buy it at 50% of the value. So
okay.
I think there's a plan going on here that they're going to put these people in, they're going to pay it, all of a sudden they'll have the right to buy it, but I don't think the people in it will be able to buy it because they won't have good jobs or the money. But I wouldn't be surprised if the government don't step in and buy it for them. Or the other thing you're going to get, if you take them in as a tenant, you are never going to be able to get rid of them. Because as soon as you go to court saying, he was a migrant and the government has stopped paying, you will never get rid of them. And I can just see, the people in property, if you allow this to happen, I think you're going to come unstuck somewhere. And as I say, 2 people I know of, and they're both moving to Dubai actually. She said, one woman said to me the other day, she said, I am selling she said, I'm absolutely gutted. She said, because giving the tenant the right to buy, she said, I've got one tenant, she said, has been in my property 15 years. So, let's say it's worth £1 million. All of a sudden, next year she'll have the right to buy it for $500,000. She said, I'm absolutely gutted because she's built this portfolio up over the years. She said, I'm selling everything. Now, that's the second one I've heard. This is just people I know. So I would think landlords are now thinking to themselves, you either enter the scheme or you sell your property. And I think it's gonna be a crash in the property market in the UK because of this. It actually comes out in 26, but there seems to me this, let's get them into private rented accommodation, as if they're like, giving the landlord the bait, you take the bait, and then we've got you.
This is like Marxism because they don't want us to own houses, right? That's what it seems like now. The government want to take control. I honestly, I always try to shy away from this, but I just can't not see like Starmer, Labour not being controlled over. It's like, I don't know, the WEF, the EU. I just think he's a puppet to those guys in some sort. And it seems like now they want to attack businesses. They want to take away your home. Like, they just want to control everything.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like post-COVID, it seems like COVID was like the precursor for all of this. It was like the test.
Yeah.
And we all pretty much complied, right? We all stayed at home, got the lockdowns, some more angry than others, but it just seems like it seems very like murky, and I don't, that sounds horrific what they're doing.
Yeah, look,
Landlords.
COVID is, the world was in a mess then, and nobody knew how to react or deal with it. Unfortunately, we got through the COVID, but the after effects, I think, is what we're suffering now. And as you say, whichever way you work, you can sit here 24 hours. Why the government conducting themselves like this? And you can't come up with a reason. It's just no logical reason, and I don't believe they'll be in for the full term. I'm convinced they won't be. And you get different sort of people saying the king can call a general election, he can step in. I think he will step in. I really do, because you cannot. I think 9 months or 10 months now, we cannot go on like this. I mean, I wouldn't. I can't even think 4 years ahead from now, the mess we'll be in. But if we're in this much mess in 10 months, imagine what we're going to be like in 12 months, and to even think about it, 2 years. So I said from day one that Labour will be screaming to get out of government. They will be screaming, because I think the pressure and the damage they would have done will be so much that they will be begging to. It's like you're going to work and you've got this most awful job where you cannot stomach it, you know what I mean? And, some people pack their job in because it's that bad they can't put up with the environment, they can't put up with whatever they're doing or the way they're being treated. And I think that's what the government will do. I think people say to me they'll never call a general election, but there's higher powers than them that will call a general election. And, I don't think it's far away. I really don't.
I just wish the media were more fair. Like, if they really talked about what we're talking about, I think that would put a lot more pressure on Keir Starmer. I think he's, at the moment, he's a bit maybe shielded. He has his little London, Westminster bubble. He just does his own thing. The media's quite friendly to him generally. If they really, really started being fair, I think you'd really see
I think Starmer was one of the ones that was a great lover of free speech, and it seems the only free speech he wants, as long as it comes from his lot. But as soon as I say something, and it's free speech, I'm a racist, I'm a slave driver, I'm a dinosaur. What about all the thousands of people that I've got into work? What about all the apprentices? What about all the charities I've been involved with and still are involved in? They seem to overlook that, and they just target you as a bad person. And I know Alfie Best, the gypsy billionaire, quite well, and they drove him out to, what's it called, Monaco, sorry. They drove him out to there, but he's now started up in the USA. He does these sort of park homes and that. And, he said to me the other week, he said, we know what we're doing. We can do it in any country we want. And he's right. Yeah. I can bring my business to Dubai. I can take it to Spain. I don't necessarily need London and the UK no more. It's not the greatest place for business. And I think the government are overlooking that now, that you can, with all this, mobile and social media, in other words, you don't need to be in the UK to run a business. And, I'm talking to him, and he said to me that he's doing very well in America. But they've forced him into that. Yeah. He would have opened up more park homes in the UK, but he's actually been forced to it. And he said to me, I'm loving it there. So he said it's going well there, and his son's very involved in it. And he's actually coming to Dubai next week himself. He's a regular visitor here. I don't know what his plans are. I mean, that's for him to say. But all he said to me is, we don't need the UK to be successful. If you're successful with business in the UK, you can do that anywhere in the world. And more so today than ever. More so than ever.
It's so sad, though. We said at the start, like, these people are being pushed away, and if they don't understand that, the longer you stay in the UK, the bigger your business grows, the more people you employ, the less people that are on benefits. You take them out, you put them in employment. They then pay taxes. You then pay extra tax. All the equivalent is you're not there, so they rely more on benefits. There's less jobs, and you're not able to tax on the more wealthier people in the country. It's a lose-lose or win-win where you entice to make it.
I'm not sure, honestly. I mean, to me, it's common sense, and obviously, it's clearly common sense to you. Yeah. But I'm not sure what bit of common sense they don't understand. We know common sense ain't that common. Yeah. But they don't seem to have the very basic bits, and all us people can't be wrong. We cannot be wrong, where most people that are knocking me, they're telling me that I'm not patriotic, I'm running away, I'm tax avoiding. How can I be tax avoiding? If I was tax avoiding, I would have done it years ago.
Yeah.
I paid in over 120 million. I don't owe the UK anything. What the statement I made is that I'm no longer prepared to pay taxes in the UK because I don't like what they're doing with our money. It's simple as that. I mean, that's the reason I've left the UK, the main reason. Obviously, I said to you about the safety factor. And, I have to be honest, Dubai, it's got a lot to offer.
But it's not even, the unpatriotic thing's really unfair. Like, you can't, if your country's been taken over by a group of people who are making it less safe for you, who are taking money away from you, then that's got nothing to do with patriotism. That's just, you're doing what's best for you and your family. Like, that's nothing to do with being unpatriotic, because we're both saying that we would rather still be in the UK, but we're not there because of you're making it less safe for us, and you're taking away our money. So why are we going to be there?
Well, that's right. I totally agree with you, but they just look at it, you're running away. All of a sudden, we've got a tough battle on in the UK.
Right.
And you people, that's how they say it, you made your money in the UK, and now you want to run away. But, they're saying you made your money, you've avoiding taxes. I mean, load of nonsense, absolutely nonsense.
I guarantee those people would have, the ones that say it to you, if they could have, would have run away a lot sooner than you. I guarantee it. If they could have, they would have run away way sooner than you. And I think it shows that they're not capable of running away, first of all. They obviously don't have the resources to do it, one. And second, they're seeing this as an opportunity to, again, just attack somebody who's been successful. And I honestly feel, and I do blame even the previous government a bit on this as well, where they've made it seem like anyone that wants to, they made profit seem like a bad word.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think it's like fed into the culture a bit, where when I was growing up, if I saw a successful business person, my first questions were all like, why? Like, how'd you do it? Like, how'd you make the money? Like, so I want to listen and learn. Now it's like you see a successful business person. I think a lot of people my age or younger, the first thing would be, like, how many people what kind of slavery rules did you put in place? Like, how much money did you steal and all this sort of stuff. And I think that culture's maybe why they...
I think it's got worse. I've had that for years, you made all your money out of ripping off old ladies kind of thing. And you cannot run a successful business for 41 years. You cannot have a business for 41 years if you're ripping off people.
Yeah.
You probably
get found out
within a year or two. And I'm thinking, how stupid are you? Why don't you just accept the fact that, I employed 500 people and, we grew the business and we become the best plumbing company in London, and we employed loads of apprentices, and, we got involved with charities and community. Why not come in at that angle rather than this, you're ripping off old ladies? And I'm thinking to myself, what do you people know about business?
Yeah.
And, you probably, I know you know this, but you never get anybody knocking you that's doing better than you.
Very true. Yeah.
Let's not kid anyone. These people, they're probably not capable of doing anything other than just following the system.
Yeah.
And anybody that does sort of do well, they want to attack them and knock them. But, I mean, I've only got to see anybody, I get, like yourself, many messages, and, somebody said to me, I've not had a day off for X amount of years, and I was ill, and I've built this business up, and I'm, and I've never been on better, and I applaud them. But I mean, I've got all the respect in the world for anybody that goes to work.
Yeah.
And I've got no respect for people that can go to work and don't go to work and claim benefits. People that need the benefits, you need more. We should give you double. The people that don't to work and claim benefits and can go to work, I've got no time or respect for them whatsoever. But anybody that goes to work, if you was a road sweeper or a bank manager, I don't like bank managers, but, anybody that goes to work, I've got total respect for.
You've accomplished something. You've got a purpose. I think this work, or this kind of, it's definitely more my generation and younger have got this kind of thing of where it's like, you need to find your purpose, you need to be happy, and all this kind of nonsense, where it's like, no, I think we spend too much time thinking. I really think a lot of my generation younger, we think too much. We don't do enough. We think a lot. We talk a lot because we've got our phones that show all this information. So we actually learn about stuff that's irrelevant, that like my parents would never have learned about, and they don't need to learn. And they're happy in that, not ignorant bliss, but they don't need to learn about every single thing in the world. Right. They just need to learn about how to put food on the table, how they can put more food on the table and move up in the world. Whereas I think a lot of the time people learning now, younger people are learning about stuff that's irrelevant, that's never going to have an impact on them, whether it's Israel, Palestine, it makes no, like, there's so many problems in the world. I think they hide behind attacking you, attacking other countries between their own natural problems because they don't actually want to do it themselves.
I totally agree with you. And as you say that, I'm thinking there, and I know people can do amazing things with a computer. They do this, that, but they can't cross the road on their own.
Yeah.
They couldn't do their shoelace up. Because they haven't learned any life skills. And I wasn't that academic, and when I left school, 15, my education began in the workplace.
Yeah.
From that moment you had to, get on the train yourself and, sort of get your own lunch and get there on time and, go home here and dress like this and do this and do that. My education started when I went in the workplace. Yeah. And I feel that's what's happening now with this generation. If you don't go in the workplace, how can you go beyond where you are? You can't move anything. I have to say this and I'm not necessarily knocking all university people, but often we've had people come for a job that's got a university degree and they can't even find the door to the building. And I'm not. No, we're looking on the camera and we're saying, "Oh, please, look, it's there. Look, it's there. Look, it's right. Please." They're walking up and down the road. Okay, we have a long building, but I mean, it's fairly obvious. It says reception, but they cannot even find that thing. And then they make phone calls and they already ain't got the job. We interview them, fill a form in, and you think, if you haven't got the common sense to, find it, or they'll be in the road you're in, and they're ringing up saying, I can't find you. And, where we was in, the previous company, I think we took up 3/4 of the street, the building. And and the street weren't that long, I'm probably
hard to miss you guys.
600 yards long, and we had probably 400 yards of it. And the signs, and, I'm pretty good on, we know how to market your business. Yeah. And they're going, I just can't find you. And, if I'd seen this and someone's dealing with them, I'd say, look, make sure you don't give them the job. Because can you imagine what they'd be like in the office? Where's the toilet? Where's the canteen? What do I do? Look, I'm all for teaching people, but, you can't go university for 3 or 4 years, come there with a degree, and then think you're entitled to walk into a top job, with no common sense.
The more you say this, the more I realise I'm actually really, really grateful. When I turned 16, even before I turned 16, my parents, regardless of if I was going to university or not, were both like, you have to get a job. Like, you're going to go to work, whether it's part-time, whatever. You can hopefully go to university, whatever, but you have to have a part-time job. Like, the moment you're able to work, you're going to work. And I remember 16 years old, I worked for PC World, and I worked actually throughout university. So like on weekends, I basically just like pocket money. But it was an amazing experience because it was like you're not with your fellow university. You're learning about like real life people. You're learning that not everyone is like privileged as you. Not everyone's the same as you. You're learning that you're experiencing different things, different profiles.
It's life experiences, and you're not going to get them by not getting out of where you live or standing on a computer all day. You just the other thing you probably notice, a lot of the youngsters, they find it hard to communicate. Yeah. They've got no communication skills. And again, I'm not saying all of them, because there's some great youngsters out there and their work ethics are amazing. I get so many people send me messages like, look, don't say all youngsters lazy. My son done this, he's done an apprenticeship, he's now bought his own house. And I'm like, well done. And the amount of youngsters I'm noticing that have gone the right road and have bought their own house at a very early age, and yet I'm hearing other youngsters say, well, there's no point, I'm never going to be able to buy my own house. Well, it's a level playing field out there. This guy who happens to be a carpenter and, saved for a few years and done his apprenticeship and has bought an house. Yeah. What's any different with you? If you want to stay at home, then you're never going to buy your own house. But to give up that we've got no future, we've got no prospects, there's no point in going to work. I mean, you can't look at it that way.
I think I do think for young people, like in comparison maybe to previous generations, like when it comes to buying a house, maybe deposits were easier and all that sort of stuff, and it's a bit harder now, blah, blah. But I agree with you. I actually think, I'd go as far as saying, if you're a hardworking young person, I actually think in some ways it's actually easier because there's not many hardworking young people. Right, yeah, I think you can run rings around a lot of these people because unlike maybe your generation or whatever, there's loads of you working hard, so it's actually tough, it's competitive. Whereas now, if you're a young person
you're dedicated,
you would like blossom because you'll be such a stark difference.
That's exactly it.
Whereas in you're actually you're all working so hard.
It was all on a level. Yeah, look, you're so right there, because I've said to many people that, I believe that the people working from home will be the ones that lose their jobs first. And I had all these people saying, no, you don't got to get an office, you ain't got to pay this, you ain't got all the travelling. Yeah, I get all that, but, what goes around comes around. And, why would anybody open up a business and you've got people at home telling you what time they're going to, work from, and and you ain't got a clue what they're doing. And, there was, I had a guy working for me, a carpenter, and he said during the COVID, his wife was so-called working from home. Oh no, she's working from home now after COVID. He said, and she'd be doing her gym lessons and she's working. Right. He said, and then she'd go down the hairdresser and have her nails done, and she'd answer. And he said to me, he said, to be honest, he said, it's driving her mad being at home, but they want to, I don't know if they wanted to work from home, or maybe they did. And he said, honestly, he said, she's half the day she's not working, and not necessarily, how would you say it, that I don't think you can get into it properly in the workplace,
it's hard.
At home. And, you get all these people, you haven't got a proper desk, and you haven't got a proper chair, and you haven't got a proper computer. It's going to lead to problems. It's going to lead to problems working at home. And then, you've got, let's be fair, you've got dogs at home, you've got children at home. I rung someone up the other day, and they was obviously working from home, and all I could hear was a dog barking. And I'm thinking to myself, this just ain't right. I don't know who it was or what it was, but I just remember this dog barking, and I'm thinking, hold on, I've just rung this business. I've got this dog barking. I mean, I try not to do business with anybody that works from home.
Okay.
If it was a company, doing windows or anything like that, and he says, I always say to him, where are you based?
Right.
And if they say to me, well, I work from home, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I'm not interested in the price. I just, I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, it was sort of illegal to work from home, like kind of thing, run your business. Yeah.
Okay.
If you mustn't like store your equipment at home, and you mustn't have your guys turning up. So it was looked on as a bad thing. And then, when somebody had an office, you had a registered address, it meant you was legit.
Got it.
But now it's gone the other way. It's like, I can work from home, I don't need an office. And I'm thinking, why would you change? I mean, you've got a proper office address that's registered. You can't necessarily go around someone's house on a block of flats and you're saying, where's my guarantee? And, you haven't turned up for the job. I say I will only do business with people that have got a proper office or a proper base. But if somebody says to me, I was talking to someone there, sorry, I'm laughing, I shouldn't do, but I was talking to someone, I think it was, I don't know if it was alarms or electrician, and he said, I've been running a business from home, and he said, I said, what, have you got an office there? And he said, well, I'm laughing, but he said, I've got this under the stairs thing, which I've turned into a bit of an office, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, you're working from under the stairs.
Like a closet.
It was like, but it wasn't, he just sort of said, well, there was this space under the stairs. He said, I've turned it into a bit of an office. And I said to him, look, if you want to, you've got to get out your house, you know what I mean? I think he was a youngish fellow, and you probably see it as a starting point, but the quicker you get an office, the quicker you employ people, that's the way to progress. I have a thing that's asked me often, how can I scale my business up? And I say to people, the only way you can make your business bigger is by employing people.
Yeah.
You can only do one man's work, one man's wages. And I said, as soon as you start employing people, and I said, the problem is a double-edged sword, because the worst thing in business is employing people. That's what I say anyhow. Right. And the best thing in business is employing people. If you know what I'm saying, coming from.
I just think you can read as much as you want, you can learn as much as you want. The best changes you'll make through life is through meeting other people. I always say this to my wife. I'm always like, you know what? Like, if I had the answers, if my parents had the answers, if your parents, we wouldn't be here. Like, we'd have our yacht in the Bahamas. We wouldn't be here. So we haven't. So let's go meet people. You're not going to get the answers from, unfortunately, even us two. Like, you're not, like, you're going to get it from somewhere else. It may be from Charlie, maybe from someone else. Maybe you'll pick up on some little sound bites. You've said something, and I'll be like, oh, go home, and I'll be like, you know what? Oh, Charlie made a good point there. I should I could do that for my work, or I could do that there.
Yeah,
and
well, that's
you
it. Look, that's why I have this saying: we all learn from somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on Alfie Best says he's doing a wealth thing in London. I think it's in July, and you know, where he's been very successful. And you know, I happen to be one of the speakers, the last speaker for some reason. He seems to think that's what he wanted, but there's no problem with that. And it's not something I enjoy doing, but you know, I know that everybody learns from somebody.
Yeah.
So there'll be many people there who think he's talking rubbish. There'll be many people who go, well, that's what I'll do, or that's what I'll do. And you've got to remember this. I don't think any of us have any new ideas. We just take the old ideas and, you know, play around with it a little bit. And I say, I go back to this thing, we all learn from somebody. And that's important. And you know, there's no finer way than turning up at a workplace, seeing what's going on and thinking, oh, you know, I'll pick that idea up, or I wouldn't do that. And when you're there, people often say, what do you think of this? And you say, well, I don't particularly like the uniform, or I don't like the name of your company, kind of thing. And it doesn't mean you're right, but, you know, it gives them room to think about it. And that's how we learn, you know what I mean? I mean, there's a company wants to do business with me, and the company's called Poxy Jobs.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
Poxy Jobs.
And he said, we're doing something similar to you. We can amalgamate. I don't even know where they are. And I'm thinking, are you joking? He feels that it's a Poxy job that they don't want to do, so they call him. And I'm thinking, if there's a name to put me off in business, it'd be Poxy Jobs. But you know, there's no point in me telling the fella, because, you know, I won't do business with him. I don't do business with anybody. You know, I don't amalgamate my business with anybody. In other words, you know, I don't think they can bring anything better to the table than what we've got. But he sort of said, you know, we could, and I'm thinking, how can you advertise the name of Poxy Jobs? And but look, he says it's working for him, but you know, I don't see it, kind of thing. You know, and I go back to this thing, we all learn from somebody. There's a reason why, you know, not every name is a great name of a business, but you know, it can't be a bad name, can it? You know what I mean? It's like saying we're terrible plumbers. You wouldn't be that, or something like that. But again, you know, so they're just separate incidents. But you know, I'll go back to what I'm saying. You know, if you want to be successful, you need to get out in the workplace. And look, there is a good future out there for lots of youngsters, you know, and I think the UK has got a future, but it's just got to change so many things. And for a youngster to go forward, all you need to do, starting point is getting a job, and then your life will change. You know, I'm not telling you. I'm just,
I agree. I agree with you. Conscious of timings, there's like a closing thing I always do on this show, which is I ask the guest, what is an unpopular opinion that you have that should be popular, that you think should be popular? So what something that you would say you get a lot of criticism for? It can be something we've discussed already. It can be completely different, but an unpopular opinion you have that you think
an unpopular thing that I say is we don't allow working from home. You know, the people that, you know, dislike that, and I think it should be a popular opinion. I think that, you know, I think working from home is doing so much damage to the economy, to the person, to society, and this is proven. I mean, you know, the generation we've got now, you know, they don't particularly, not all of them don't want to go out to work, and then, you know, they're seeing their generation before that may have been on benefits, and so, you know, and they're staying at home, and then all of a sudden they're being told, you know, you don't need to go to work, you can do it from home. I mean, I think it's such a wrong message. So I feel that should be turned into, you know, I turn minuses into a plus. So most people, not most people, a lot of these work from home brigade, oh, it's a great thing, we're more productive. I've never spoke to a work from home person yet that says he's less productive. But what are they going to say? Their boss is asking them. You know,
I've just thought of something that, and I don't know. I've never thought this before, but from working from home. So the generation now from the 20s to 30s, this is right now it is the biggest generation of people that are single ever in history. So from 20 to 30, there's more single men and there's more single women.
Is there, yeah?
And so it's like a big problem in the UK and the West.
Yeah.
And it's just come to me, but like a lot of people meet their partners, so people from work. That's how they meet them. A lot of the time it's from work. So if you're not in that environment where you're meeting new people, you're going to be shy and unconfident when you do meet somebody, but you're also limiting your dating pool, if you like, if you're not going to the office.
Yeah,
So
I never
there's
looked at it like that, but I think
yeah.
there's many factors. I mean, there's a social life at work. Quite a lot of people socialise at work. I know people that work with me for years, and and other people that work with me, and they're great friends now, and and they've had children, and they're together, and I've gone to often, my daughter's house, and it's one of her children's birthday, and she used to work with me, and her husband used to work with me on the drains. And a couple of people have turned up and go, "Oh, I used to work for you years ago." So they've remained friends.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's work. There's going to work. It's more than just going to work. It's learning life skills. It's meeting people. I mean, I didn't think about the dating side of it. I mean, I didn't look at it like that.
I didn't. It's one of so like it's a big debate at the moment is why more young people are single than ever. Like it's like a real problem with like men and women. They're more single than ever, and you could argue one of the reasons is. Like if you meet the amount of people you meet who are like couples, like how did you meet? They'll say, "Oh, we were working together, or we used to work together, whatever." But if you've never been to the office, you've limited.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact percentage, but I think it's like 20 or 30 people meet who they marry from work.
Yeah.
So that's 20-30% just gone that they wouldn't have met.
That's it. It's so damaging, and I'm not trying to convince anybody because, as I say, for me, the people that work from home. They'll be the first ones that their business shuts down because, I experienced it the other day, and I think it was for one day, and I said to this guy, I said, I just can't do it again. I said, it has drove us absolutely bonkers, not being able to know this. And he said, well, I'm answering the phone when you ring. I said, yeah, but, people are uncertain. I said, you've got people under you, and, they're not kids, but... they wanted to check something out, and I said, the success in business is like action, getting on with it. Yeah. And the amount of people that you ring up and then work from home, and it's like, I'll come back to you tomorrow, or I'll have to come back to you. And thinking it's a straightforward question, you know what I mean? And where if you're in the office, you're all amalgamated, you're all learning off of each other, good things and bad things. You're socialising. I mean, we're human beings. We need to be in contact with other human beings. And you rightly, as you just said, if the marriage side of it comes into it also, probably your social life, because a lot of people meet friends at work, but work ain't all about work, and there's a lot more goes on at work. There's some people, I mean, I've got to be honest with you, we've got people working in our office and they don't look like they want to go home, if I'm being honest. And we have a nice setup, and we've just come up with an idea. We have an office dog now.
Oh, nice.
Mario,
Okay.
And we got him from a dog's home in Greece.
Okay.
And I have a dog friend who's quite an expert on dogs, and who's involved with the home. And I don't know if you know, in America, an office dog is quite a big thing.
Okay.
They have an office dog. And
right.
I picked that idea up in America years ago, and I always wanted to do it at the previous company, especially that we're 24 hours. And my idea was that the dog will live in the business.
Okay.
We've got one now, had him about 6 weeks,
Amazing.
Mario, and he goes home with, I think, my grandson, and to his house and kids, and other people are fighting to take him home. But it's added a big thing to the office.
Amazing.
Honestly, and I noticed, like, you watch people on video and they're, hello Mario, and can I take him for a walk? And it's added a nice atmosphere. Now, I'm not saying it's a business tip, but I'm just saying is to lift morale. And of course, you've got a lot of people that find a dog, you know what I mean? You can trust dogs, can't you?
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So I'm just adding that in there, and I'm probably one of the first people to do it in the UK. I think there was a guy in the city done it. Right. It never really went any further, but I mean, he's even got his own page like Mario.
Wow.
And so we had a little thing. What's a good name for him? Obviously, Mario, the famous plumber. I used to have a PA called Mario for quite a few years, and he passed away recently. And I'm probably saying it's the difference of someone wanting to come into work that day, because it's not a lot of people are under the impression that you're there with a whip and you can't stop and you can't this. You know yourself, the more comfortably you make it at work and the more happier people are, the more productive you are. And I think a lot of youngsters have got the wrong impression about the workplace. If I can just add something, we used to have tours at the previous company from the Princess Trust, and most of them come from you know, bad background, a broken home, etc. And they've never been in the workplace. And they come in their workplace and go to the canteen with the questions and answers in my office. They go around and we'll see a few people doing stuff and and everyone's laughing and smiling. And they were like shocked. They fear the workplace, youngsters. And you know, and they sort of, all of a sudden they want to go to work now. So, you know, this work experience that you used to have from school to in the workplace is so needed because,
100%.
you know, I've been working since I've been about 9 or 10, so I didn't have a fear of the workplace. But when a youngster's never been into the workplace, they don't know what to expect. They think it's like, you mustn't smile, you mustn't this, you mustn't go for a cup of tea. You got, and it's not like that, you know yourself. But I just thought it's something that we need to encourage more. That, you know, there's a lot of value in the workplace, and there's a lot of value in getting out of your house. And the two questions the youngsters would always ask. I mean, I had a Bentley or Rolls Royce at the time, and they say, "Do you really drive the Bentley?" And the answer, yes, you can have a picture of it. And I think at the time I was earning £1 million, and do you really earn £1 million? And the answer again is yes. And you know, they're the things that encourage people that they want to have the Rolls Royce, they want to earn £1 million. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I used to always say to youngsters, "Oh, it's my dream car, but it's never going to happen to me." And I said, "But you know, you say it's never going to happen to you. You know, you've got an opportunity to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason why it won't happen, because your past is your past. It's where you're going from here. And I'm not going to use that term, if I can do it, you can do it. But the more you put into it, the more you get out of it."
I think that's a really good way to end. Thank you so much, Shai. It's been great speaking to you. Thank you.